Hello guys and welcome to this new video. So in this video I will show you my 10 tips to quickly improve your endgames. If you know me from the Twitch stream or from my video, you will know that I usually get some half more points in those endgames. And in fact I don't know much about rook endgames, but I will show you my 10 tips to really improve easily and comprehensively your rook endgames. So the first rule, you probably heard about this one because it's one of the most classical tip you will read on any book, is to activate rook in those endgames. So often you will see a rook coming on the 7th or the 2nd rank. So by example here, if I am white, I even don't think more than a couple of seconds. I just bring my rook on d7, and I see that the only way for black to protect the pawn is to stuck the rook on c8. So the rook is going to be really passive here, and in order to free the rook we need to play a5, maybe b5, and then c6. But then again the c6 pawn will be weak, and it will give ages to white to play some moves and improve their position. So, and as an add-up, we'll see that in this position it was impossible for black to come and activate the rook because the king was useful to cover the e2 square. So this is the first tip. I guess you knew that. Let's go to the second one, which is already a bit more tricky. Having an active rook is more important than defending a pawn. So the thing is that, by example here, if my opponent plays rook d7, attacking the pawn as in the previous example, I will definitely not go rook c8, because I will see that in order to defend, now by example he plays king f2 to order to free my rook. If I play by example c5, it's just going to be rook b7, rook c6, and again my rook is stuck and committed to a pawn, and my king is cut off. So I would just move rook e2, giving up a pawn but getting some activity to win back pawns. The same would apply if you don't win back material immediately. I'm just putting some easy example to make sure you understand the point. So the second tip was to activate rook. To activate rook is more important than defending a pawn. The third tip is that in rook endgames you need to activate your king, to centralize your king as soon as possible. By example here, you are white, you can bring the rook on e7. In fact, it's hard to see how to bring it on the 7th rank. You are a pawn up and you could create a pass pawn, but you should not worry with that. It's better just to bring your king to the center. As you see, it protects the pawn, and from then it will support your pawn push, or if there is space, it can even come forward, starting to attack the pawn chain. So centralizing a king in the rook endgame is really a key factor if you want to win games. And it's really astonishing that many players, even I rated, tend to forget just to play such an easy move here as king c2 and king c3. So this was the third tip: centralize your king. The fourth tip is something I learned pretty lately, I would say, after my chess career ended, which is a bit ridiculous. So the first tip is to have a pawn defending your whole pawn chain, which means if you defend here with white the c3 pawn or the f3 pawn, you are defending the whole pawn chain. And this is really important, because like that, by example, if I come on c6 with the rook, well, here it's not possible to come to make counterplay with black, but if I win the c6 pawn, I immediately will attack the a6 pawn. Okay, so I will be able to win 2 pawns in a row. As black, if you win the c3 pawn, you will need to go to c4 to win the pawn on b4, then go to a4, and to win the pawn on a5. So each pawn defends each other. This is something really important. You will see if you try to use this thing in your game, your results in the end games will amazingly increase. Again, if here you win the g7 pawn, after rook g6 you will attack 2 pawns. So it's really a matter of tempi. You are really winning tempi like that. If your pawn chain is rightly defended. So if the pawn defend themselves in the right way. So important tip, the whole pawn chain is better when defended by one pawn. The fifth tip is that more advanced pawns are often better in the endgame. It's not always the case. Sometimes they tend to be just weak and you will just lose them. So I just bring up this example here. So after rook e7, this is always really dangerous because when I win the a7 pawn, my pawn is just too square for making a queen. So here black could defend by playing rook d3, rook a7, rook b7, rook b3, sorry, rook b7, and king h7 here, saving the day. If the pawn was on h7, he could not stop the pawn because after rook a3, a7, I would be able to play rook b8, a8 queen, but here you can just play king to h7. Anyway, white would be able to take this pawn and to take the good square for the rook, forcing the rook to become passive, and this endgame is most probably drawn. So the thing is that when the pawn is really advanced, as we had in this example, when you win the one that is its front, you are really a few squares away from making a queen, and this is always going to be dangerous. So the fifth tip was more advanced pawns are better than less advanced one, but it's not always the case. Sometimes they might just be weak. So it's general tip. The sixth tip, I won't show it on the screen, but it's general tip. Exchange a pair of rook when you are up in material. So I will maybe try to make another video about that because we need more complicated example for this one, but exchange a pair of rook when you are up in material, it's always a sure thing. The seventh one is learn by heart the most basic endgames like Lucena and Philidor. Like if you are here with black, like the white play rook a7, king f8, you must be sure of your thing. You must know exactly how to draw those endgames. You have a few videos already about that on YouTube, so you can just search for one, or maybe I will link something for you. But this is really important. You can learn it by heart in the books or by watching video, but you should really know your stuff. So learning the most basic theoretical endgame is something really important. Just that when you analyze, when you calculate, you just know where you are going. A very important one, the eighth one, is that a rook is better behind the pawn. So I put up this example here. The first one with the rook that is in front of the pawn, and amazingly this endgame is just drawn. So white could do anything they want, just playing moves. They won't be able to get the rook out. So as soon as the king protects the pawn, the rook is just checking the king forever. And when the king drags away, the rook is coming back. And the g5 pawn is just helpless, because if you play g6, black is never going to take the pawn because of the check. So you take the pawn, he checks, and he queens. So he's just going to play waiting moves with the rook, and you will never be able to hide your king. So this endgame is just drawn. Well, this is a simple example of about why a rook is better behind the pawn, but it's almost always the same case if there are more pawns on the board. To show you the contrary example, when the white rook is behind the pawn this time, you just have to bring your king. Okay, the pawn is moving, so now if the rook goes over there, you just queen, and if the king goes here, you can just bring your king on his side and then support your pawn and queen it, just because your rook is way more active when it's behind than when it's in front. So this is a very important tip, and it's always almost always the fact either there is just 2 pawns on the board or 6 for each. it's better to have it behind for passed pawn. So the ninth tip is again, I will not show it on the board because it's more complicated example, but when you are down in material, you should try to create counterplay by making a passed pawn on the side where you have equal material. Things that when you are losing or close to losing, you should not play passively. You better go all in. I mean, you better try to make a passed pawn, try to make a queen, put pressure on your opponent. Maybe he might get a bit freaky, a bit tense, and produce a mistake because he just don't want to take risks. So you always need to be aggressive on the end game, especially when you are worse. So making a passed pawn is always a sure thing to make your opponent producing mistakes and cracking the pants. And we have now our last example, the 10th and last example, which is understand for whom the pawn endgame is favorable in the case of a rook exchange. So here we have position with white. You can see here we have 4 pawns against 4 pawns. Okay, we can recognize here that those 2 pawns are stopped by this one, which means virtually white is a pawn up. Okay, this position is still pretty complicated. Black wants to play rook e4, rook a4 maybe, and winning back the pawn on a5. But here, I can recognize my pawn endgame I think it's just winning, but I mean it's much better because this pawn is passed, and the king is never going to be able to get outside of the pocket. So I can comfortably, especially in the blitz, play rook e1, offering the exchange. Black, of course, doesn't want to exchange rooks. And now I can play rook e5, attacking the pawn, and he has to bring the rook back on f8. So I am now having the active rook, and he's having the passive rook, and I'm of course having a great advantage. If I didn't recognize that the pawn endgame was winning, I would not have played rook e1, but just a move like rook b1. He could have entered a rook e4, king f3, rook a4, take the pawn, take this pawn, and this is far from being clear if white is winning. In fact, I think it's closer to a draw here. So just by recognizing that the pawn endgame is winning, you can shred the rook just by exchanging it and win a tempo, which is often a decider in the rook endgames. I hope you enjoyed this short video, but still with a lot of important informations. So thank you for watching. Hope to be back with some more concrete videos about some of the tips I gave. So thanks again, thanks the last time. Have a good day, good evening, bye bye.